Okay, it's raining, so I'm here parked in the garage. We're going to talk about transitions. Why? It's September, and I'm getting calls from people on LinkedIn, people that I know from the past, and we're talking about people in their actually 40s and up getting laid off. Not only laid off, it's permanently. Some of them don't even have the opportunity to get unemployment. And what's unemployment going to be? So seriously, I call it transitions. At least, like my brother and I talk about, thank God we're older. We got Social Security. We have some cash flow to get us through these tough times. But the people that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s that are getting laid off when there's still another 10, 15, 20 years of employment, it's not easy, man. So what can I provide in solutions? I've been very lucky in my life because I've always focused on retirement. I've always focused on a Roth. I've always focused on providing for my family. I've been married a couple times, so I had to really balance my finances and live according to my means. So I always had a budget. Now that I'm in my 70s, I'm thanking God. In fact, I just thanked recently one of my advisors, financial advisors from the 90s, when he put me on a roadmap of the Roth investment vehicle, okay, and traditional IRAs. I had a pension back when I was in my 20s. So I had to do a lot of conversions with all the new rules, regulations, and the IRS, and tax advisors and so on. So what did I do? I listened to them. But at the same time, I was always employed. Now, what do you mean by always employed, Rock? Well, I was unemployable because I was an entrepreneur. So I never really worked for anybody since 1993. I've been independent. I never really received a W-2, I don't recall. And I realized I couldn't file for unemployment because I was self-employed. You see what I'm saying? So I've always been a 1099 since the 90s. Now, how is that going to help my YouTube listeners in their community? Well, first of all, you have to get a job, man, even if you get laid off. And I've said this story before. I've had a buddy that had a master's degree. He was in his 50s, and he was working for a company actually in tobacco years ago, and he got laid off in his mid-50s. And in a way, he didn't know what he was going to do. He was also divorced twice and eventually went homeless. He went homeless for a while. Then he went to the third shift as an old man in his 50s to drive a forklift in the third shift just to earn some money to eat and take care of his responsibilities. And I saw it. And I'll tell you, I never thought that somebody in their 50s with a master's degree would have to look for a job. And we're talking about the early 2000s. Well, now it's 2025. And I spoke to a human resource recruiter last week for about an hour about the printing industry. I've been also associated with the printing industry for 50 years, doing deals, mergers and acquisitions, buying and selling my own businesses and for others as an advisor globally. So I've always had the drive to go earn something, because I never wanted to withdraw from my IRA, withdraw from my Roth, and make sure I can pay my mortgage and so on. So I was always employed, and my background is more or less sales, okay? But I also knew the industry. I was a student of the industry. So this video basically is to let people know that we all know that times are tough. We've been seeing in the last couple months about unemployment here in the United States. And we haven't hit bottom yet because we're not in the fourth quarter, which I call the pink slip quarter. Because here's where business owners, entrepreneurs, private equity, they're making cuts to finish the year strong. Remember those two words, finish strong. That's all they care about. Now, talking to HR, very many people are unemployed today. Now, they usually go to a recruiter after they've been laid off or fired. How difficult is it to get a job? And the older you are, the long-term effect will come into play. In other words, maybe it was a year to be unemployed elsewhere. It's probably 2 to 3 years now if you're over 55. And if you don't do your own gig as a freelance, it's going to be very difficult to compete with a 25 to 45-year-old. And here's why. Most employers are looking for talent that's going to be at their facility contributing as an executive or salesperson for at least 10 years. Because they're putting their succession strategies together, because these older guys, these executives and so on, they're being let go, or they're taking their dollars and they're moving on. It could be health, it could be death, it could be dementia, it could alcohol, addictions, divorce. Everybody goes through life. So am I going to put the fear of God in you? Yeah. You have to. I have kids in their 40s. If they lost their job tomorrow, they'd have to go find something, because they have children. They have overhead. They have fixed costs. They have colleges. They have education. And if you have morals and family values, you're going to pass that on to family generations. So today's deal here is, it's tough out there, and I think it's going to get tougher. But ultimately, what I think I did in my 50-year career that I did best was save for a rainy day. Because once you get to the point where you have a budget, an expense account, and you can manage it and control it, and you have discipline, you have patience, you have goals, it gives you a purpose on top of it. And don't forget, you're a role model to your kids, because you don't want your kids to be entitled. Believe me. You want them to be brought up like what I believe my parents did for us, which was a job was more important than education. That's right. But conduct was more important than an education. You see what I'm saying? So why am I on YouTube? Why am I creating another career? I'm going through a transition. Once I hit 66 and I got Social Security, I said, wow, it's coming to an end. So officially, my goal was to be in business for 50 years, where I could actually say it. Here I am, 50 years worth of business. I am now a Yoda, and hopefully you're my Jedis. Okay? Now, I had Yodas for many years. I've always had some type of a mentor. But guess what's happening to my mentors? They're passing away. Now, I'm the elder in my industry. And not everybody's going to listen to me, because the generations are different. But I will say this. I had the opportunity and the blessing and the luck that my kids listened to me. And I said, listen, education is very important. But second of all, you need to be a good person. You need to have integrity. You need to, do the right thing, man. Keep your promises. And every generation has that opportunity that you should search for, because God's got a purpose for everybody. And I believe that. God gives you the purpose. Now that I'm in my 70s, I'm saying to myself, let me see here. Should I get some more light? I'm in the car and it's raining out. God gave me the opportunity to be curious and to search. And I never stopped educating through formal education or informal, or what I call the streets. There was a book out called Guerrilla Marketing. That's basically doing things bootstrap. So everything in my mind that I think about the opportunity. And I don't get greedy. I get to the point where baby steps will lead to something very important. So I have a very tight team, a very tight niche team. But every time I hand select who I believe I bring in the best players. You follow me? For an example, a coach in the NFL, he's got to pick out running backs. Oh, no, let's use fantasy football. Fantasy football. You need running backs, you need wideouts, you need a quarterback, you need a defense, you need a kicker, you need a flex, as they call it, and you need a bench. So that's what happens in life too. So making sure you pick the right horse, you don't always get that right horse. Like in my case, I picked the wrong horse this year in 2025 in fantasy football. But I still think strategically that every weekend I look at the matchup, I look at the opportunity, I look at the defense, I look at the offense, I look where they're playing, if they're playing on grass. I do all the things on YouTube that suggest here's what you go with. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. And that's what a transition's like. Another word for transition is you need to change. Change will come. Good, bad, and ugly, change will come. So, this video is about change and transition, that it's coming. And what do you do about it? So my videos are supposed to give some type of insight on solutions. Educate. Motivate. I try to inspire people. The 3 E's. I educate, I encourage, I empower. But where's the empower come from? The empower and the motivation comes from you. Exactly. And don't forget, everything at the end of the day, you have to make the decision. You. Not your wife, not your husband, not your boyfriend. You know, I went to the chiropractor the other day, and I had a new young chiropractor. In fact, I asked if she had her license. She looked so young, maybe 12. Okay. And so I just started asking her, how do you like it? What made you decide? And she was from Puerto Rico. And she immigrated to United States. And she came over to be a medical doctor. And then what she found is during med school in California, she met her future boyfriend. I said, well, are you married now? No, we're not married. And do I get in people's face? Yeah. So while we're going through the process of chiropractic maneuver, which I go in for basically prevention. I look at because I don't sit right. I don't do a lot like me. I'm sitting in the car right now. Look at me. I'm always got some neck problem. I got a shoulder problem from bowling. When you're in your 70s, you start looking around. I walk a lot. I always have them look at my feet. But usually I pay for some type of adjustment. But that adjustment, besides the back, I have them looking at my feet, my hands, my neck, all that stuff. Maybe every 4 months. So while I'm talking to her, I asked her, you get married? Do you have any children? No. And the more she talked to me, it was more or less the direction, her direction from him on where to move to now that she's in Florida. So here she's telling me that her boyfriend, she's taken every move from the boyfriend. When to get married, when not to get married, when to have children, when not to have children, move to Florida. She's got sisters in Puerto Rico that are following her in her footsteps for school and everything else. Those are the ones where I get so concerned that they may be picking the wrong horse. And why delay? Why live for somebody else's dream? And it's just like my ex-wives. They did not respect my entrepreneur background. They enjoyed the lifestyle, but they didn't realize the commitment it took from their spouse to provide. Then they made the decision to look at the greener side. The grass is greener on the other side, or whatever. It's easy for people to think that you're going to be able to replace your dreams with somebody else's dreams. It's not always that way. It's not always that way. So, as I mentioned before, transitions are basically changes. And changes, you have to educate yourself. And you're going to go through pain. And these layoffs, especially the older you get, are 2-3 years of transition. What you really need to watch out for is you're not going to replace what you had, maybe a 20-year, 15-year career. You never been laid off. You don't know what to do with your time. This is what I go through retirement and so on. That's one of the reasons why I started a YouTube station is I needed something to do. So here I am getting phone calls in between this video here about change and transitions. I'm going to have to cut you loose because I'm being interrupted. But this is all I'm trying to say is, listen, you need to eventually move on from your past. It took me for years to forgive my former employer. I shouldn't say employer, my partner, to force me out of my equity position. It took me for years because I felt like I was the one that built the business. But at the end of the day, they paid me for it. They paid me for it, and I had to recreate myself. In that wasted time, let's call it downtime, I spent a lot of time at the library. I spent a lot of time, trying to discern of what I was going to do next. And that's what I did, is I had to make sure I picked the right horse. And that was, okay, who am I going to represent? I made the decision, I'm going to represent myself. What services and products am I going to sell? I went out and sold myself to those people and organizations on what to do next. Did all of them keep their promises or my mission? No. And then another thing is, once you really perform and you think you could pass on your skill set to people, it's not always that way. And then you get fired, or you get laid off, or whatever it is. Then you have to recreate yourself. That's the reason why I never signed a non-compete after that, because this was my skill set. This is my background. This is my talent. This is what God gave me. Scary? Damn right it was scary. Did I have to invest in myself financially, time-wise, energy, education? Did I go without? Damn right I went without. So this is my, more or less, to the people that have been talking to me, and it's only September. You're going to see more in October. You're going to see a lot in November and December. And January, it's going to start all over again. All over again. And it's painful. And for you, especially as men with that image of being a man, of being a provider, it's really rough, man. It's really rough. And if you're a single person and have a lot of obligations, if you're a woman that just lost their job and is dependent on an income from an ex-husband or something like that, alimony or something, fuck. And then lawyers get involved. It's just terrible. So this is a time when it's good to be old. Seriously, this is a good time to be old because you could actually sleep at night if you had your goals and your ambitions and so on. And you know what? You're going to have to reduce your costs. You're going to have to reduce your role. And if you're doing it together as a married couple and a family, great. But not everybody's built that way. Somebody might walk away. So I just want to let you know that it's very important to talk about finance. It's very important to talk about religion. It's very important to talk about budgets and expenses and retirement and your health. Look at, it's all about life. It's all about life. And the older you get, you just can't say, I quit. You got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. So that's what this message is. After talking to HR and talking about recruiting and so on, these people are scared of their jobs. Think about it. And not everything is AI and scanning. It's still down to networking. It's who you know that knows a guy, that knows a guy, that knows a gal, that knows a blah, blah, blah. And you know what? It's down to your integrity. What you've done in the past. Did you fulfill your contracts? Did you fill your promises? Did you do the right thing? It's your credibility. Just like the banks. When the banks look at you, they're looking at your credibility, but most of all, they look at your collateral. That's right. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. This is Rock. My grandkid call me Papa Rock. I call myself Rock or Rocco. I'll talk to you soon. God bless.